Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Dream Big Today. My name is Debbie. This is June 26, 2023. It's a marvelous Monday, magnificent Monday. It's the Monday that we've been waiting for all our lives, if you want to put it that way. It's always great to look forward to the day and just enjoy everything that God's got in it for you. So just always look forward instead of dread. I used to dread Mondays because it just meant we were going to have a heavy work day at work. But I was looking at it all wrong. That is not how I should have looked at it. I should have looked at it as a blessing and just to go in it with God beside me, facing challenges or easy things that come across. So thank you for joining us today. And I had a great weekend. I know you've heard us talk about our couples retreat, and I talked to Elizabeth last night and heard of all the success stories and all of the way that God moved through the couples retreat. God moved through your life this weekend too. What did he do for you? What did he show you? It's just not one place, but it's always seems to happen, doesn't it? Whenever people and like-minded people get together and the Spirit's just moving like crazy everywhere. Well, that happened to me at church yesterday too. And I might get an opportunity to tell you about that in a minute. But I'd like to start by just reminding you to put your praise reports in the text and put your praise or your prayer request in there too, so we can pray with you and just share in life. This is a great place to come in and just join with other believers across the world. I'm telling you, across the world. We have people watching from other continents, and it's not just United States. So whenever you think about that, know that whatever good word you're putting in the text is being shared in Uganda, in India, in Iraq, Iran, in Cambodia, in Philippines, wherever. It is absolutely amazing. So let me start this morning. I just want to remind you about Jesus. You've been teaching me to rejoice always, connecting my joy to you first and foremost. It comforts me to know that you love me all time, at all times, in all circumstances, no matter what you're going through right now. He knew it was going to happen. We either is teaching you something or blessing you with something, but he's still with you. And as your word assures me, remember, that's why we read the word every day. And Elizabeth, if you're watching, this one is for you. Remember, her word was boldly unshaken. Though the mountains be shaken and the hills be removed, yet your unfailing love for me will not be shaken. We're not shaken because we stand strong in the word. So I must not give in to temptation to doubt your love when things don't go as I would like, or if I failed some way. See, there's things that happens to us all the time that just wants to bring up the past and just throw that out there. If you're getting ready to minister to somebody or do something in the mission for God, the enemy's going to attack your mind. And he's going to tell you that, you're not good enough for that. In fact, this is a situation I saw yesterday. So it wasn't even a situation, but I heard a young woman speak about having a struggle through the last week. And it was I could see it was difficult, but she continued on, ended what she was talking about, and then moved on. But I had it in my heart that I need to go talk to her. I don't know her. I don't know her name. I can't even holler at her and say, hey, hang on a second. I thought, who would know her? I don't know who knows her. But I thought, okay, Lord, if I am supposed to speak to her, you're going to have to bring her straight to me, because we're in a sea of people here, and I probably won't find her again. But as we were walking around at the end of the time, she comes walking straight to me as in the path that she was going, and I got to stop her just for a second, and I told her, Jesus said that if you come straight to me, I'm supposed to talk to you. So here we are. And so I got to speak into her. I got to speak encouragement to her. And it was just so amazing that just one little moment. I mean, God and I only had that little conversation for about a minute before everything changed. And so it's like we've been reading about Paul and Barnabas and Timothy, and being an encourager, being somebody that speaks into somebody, and being somebody that can train up somebody else. Whenever we're like out in front of people, the enemy's still whispering into your ear. And so, as I told her, and it's in today's devotion today, Philippians 4:8. We need to think about things that are excellent, praiseworthy, true, noble, right, lovely, admirable. Think about those things. Remember, what's the situation today? Am I doing God's work? This is the enemy attacking my mind. Cast that out to the pits of hell where it belongs, and you continue speaking life into somebody that needs you, only you. Okay, so now then, with that said, let's jump into the word today, 2 Kings 9:14 through 10:31. And Jehu brings God's judgment into the house of Omri. We see that he's killing a lot of people today. I mean, this is a gory day of reading. And I think that if this was in a movie and you went to watch it, you'd think, oh man, cover the kiddos' eyes, because they're going to have nightmares from this point on. But God can use all kinds of people. Jehu, son of Jehoshaphat, son of Nimshi, led a conspiracy against King Joram. And I'm going to jump on down. So Jehu told the men with him, if you want me to be king, don't let anyone leave town and go to Jezreel to report what we have done. See, do it all in secret. Then Jehu got into a chariot and rode to Jezreel to find King Joram, who was wounded. The watchmen on the tower of Jezreel saw Jehu and his company approaching, so they shouted to Joram, I see a company of troops coming. He said, send out a rider to ask if they're coming in peace. So horsemen went out and asked if he wants to know if you're coming in peace. Jehu said, what do you know about peace? Follow behind me. And they asked a second time, are you coming in peace? What do you know about peace? Fall in behind me a second time. Peace. Peace is only genuine when it is from God. We know that we're not going to have peace in this world because it is of the prince of the world. Jehu knew these men represented a wicked king. Quick, get my chariot ready, King Jehoram commanded. So King Jehoram of Israel and King Ahaziah of Judah rode out in their chariots to meet Jehu. They met him at the plot of land that belonged to Naboth of Jezreel. Now remember that one. That was the land that Jezebel wickedly obtained by murdering this innocent man, this landowner, Naboth, because her husband wanted the land. Jehu replied, how can there be peace as long as the idolatry and witchcraft of your mother Jezebel are all around us? Jehu gets out his bow and arrow. He shot Joram between the shoulders. The arrow pierced his heart, and he sank down dead in his chariot. And I thought, man, that's a spiritual thing whenever your heart is pierced. I don't wish anybody to be shot and die, but you know what? we should pray that people's heart is pierced because of the idolatry and the sin that's within them, to be a heart change moment, to be able to change. Now, Jehu was an excellent marksman, but it was God that guided his hand and ordered his arrow. How can we be an excellent marksman to pierce somebody's heart? We need to get into the word. We need to be fine-tuning our God-given skills that he's given us to be able to minister to somebody, to pierce their heart and change their ways before they are dead in their chariot, if that makes sense. So then after all of that, at the bottom of 26, it says, so just throw him out on Naboth's property, just as the Lord said. So this confirms that Jehu saw himself as a fulfiller of God's will, bringing judgment on that house of Ahab. See, they threw him out on the same land that was wickedly taken from Naboth. So when King Ahaziah of Judah saw what was happening, he fled along the road. Jehu rode after him, shouting, shoot him too, shoot him. So they shot him. Ahaziah was a blood relative of Ahab. Ahab was his grandfather. So he associated the northern kingdom of Israel and their wicked kings. It was all about the generations there. So then let's get on over to verse 30. When Jezebel, Queen Mother, heard that Jehu had come to Jezreel, she painted her eyelids and fixed her hair and sat in the window. When Jehu entered the gate of the palace, she shouted at him, have you come in peace? You murderer, you're just like Zimri, who murdered his master. Now, here it is, another wicked person. We hear of the spirit of Jezebel, which is wicked, it's awful, it's destruction 101. And what does she mean by peace? She doesn't know anything about peace. It's an amazing question coming from her. Anytime she's speaking, she's telling a lie. There can't be true peace in this world of immoral living. So Jehu looked up and saw her at the window and shouted, who is on my side? 2 or 3 eunuchs looked out at him. Throw her down, Jehu yelled. So they threw her out the window. Her blood splattered against the wall and on the horses, and Jehu trampled her body under his horse's hooves. So everything that's not of God needs to be thrown out the window. Just think of that. Throw it out the window, get rid of it. Anything in your household, anything that you're dealing with, an addiction, and that could be a shopping addiction. Maybe you need to cancel out Amazon Prime. Maybe you need to just get rid of the credit cards. Whatever it is, just like this, throw her out. And then trampled her body under the horse's hooves. She's already dead. What was the point of that? But this is what they considered a fate worse than death, to be trampled by horses in the ancient cultures. Death stripped Jezebel of her power, wealth, and security. See, everybody is going to die, no matter what your situation is, your status, your title. Whenever you've breathed your last breath, you go down with nothing. It's you. So now then, what decision are you going to make whenever it's your last day? See, it didn't matter that she looked pretty. It didn't matter that she dressed up. She sat in this window and she got pushed out. Jehu wasn't affected by this at all. What'd he do? When we see, he went to the palace and he ate and drank. Never mind his horse hooves are covered with blood, guts, and tears. He said, afterward, now, they probably did not rush through the line to eat. I think this is a long drawn out meal. After they got through, he said, someone go and bury this cursed woman, for she's the daughter of a king. Because see, that's what you're supposed to do. When they went out to bury her, they found only her skull, her feet, and her hands. The dogs had ate her body. Just like the Lord had spoke, her remains will be scattered like dung on the plot of land in Jezreel, so that no one will be able to recognize her. When we back up a little bit, remember she fixed up. She had her makeup on. She looked pretty, but the painted face was gone. Everything everything that she put on was gone, shredded, probably blown away in the wind. Her feet and her hands, everything that she did to do these wicked acts, to send somebody out, to follow somebody, whatever it was, wherever her feet took her and whatever her hands did and whatever her mind thought of next is there as an empty shell. She matters no more. So Jehu, the house of Jehu would become corrupt soon and face judgment. But we're going to read more about that one later. Man, there's a lot of fun stuff in this. And I say fun, it's sad. It's sad. But whenever we read things like this and we're thinking, man, this is so wicked. What can you look out your window and see right now, or see what's going on in the world? We just celebrated the 1 year Roe v. Wade being overturned. Well, my goodness, that's awesome. It's still happening. But when we think about all of the stupid things that's going on in the world, don't you just want to say, throw it out the window and just let it be trampled, let it just be blown away in the trash that it was. So continue reading this. This is the whole rest of chapter 10 is so good, but I want to get on to Acts 17. Just remember, watch for the spirit of Jezebel. Okay, Acts 17. Paul and Silas are still traveling. When we think about traveling, like we went to a praise and worship service last night at church, and we got into our air-conditioned vehicle and we drove like 20 minutes to get there with our cup of ice water with us. And, it was no effort to go to join a group of people. Paul and Silas didn't have that. They are traveling a long ways by foot. And so it says they traveled through the towns of Amphipolis and Apollonia and came to Thessalonica, where there was a Jewish synagogue. So Thessalonica was an important city. It was about 100 miles from Philippi. A 3-day walk is what I saw that it would have taken them. So my goodness, that means that these guys are walking, and it wasn't a straight path. there would be hills to climb and to descend. So would you go walk 33.3 miles a day to get somewhere in 3 days? I walk 10,000 steps a day, but these guys are doing it in sandals. I've got some pretty nice shoes to do my walks in. I'm thinking how driven they were to do God's work. And we complain that the air conditioner doesn't work in our car. Paul preached and reasoned and explained about Jesus, and his work was a success. It says in verse 4, some of the Jews who listened were persuaded and joined Paul and Silas, along with many God-fearing Greek men and quite a few prominent women. And so let's go on down. It talks about Jason. Some of the Jews were jealous, and they gathered some troublemakers to start a riot. They attacked the home of Jason. And we don't hear much about Jason. Excuse me, just a second. But Paul wasn't there. The people of the city, as well as the city council, were thrown into turmoil by these reports. So the officials forced Jason and the other believers to post bond, and they released them. And then 10, that very night, the believers sent Paul and Silas to Berea. And when they arrived, and the people of Berea were more open-minded than those in Thessalonica, and they listened eagerly to Paul's message. They searched the scriptures day after day to see if Paul and Silas were teaching the truth. As a result, many Jews believed. Now, see, this is something that we need to learn to do today. So we go to church, and I love my church. My pastor is great. He speaks and preaches the word. I mean, he's got his Bible up there, and he's spouting off scriptures right and left. I take my notes, and then most generally I come home and I'm looking in my Bible, and of course I take my Bible with me, but I want to meditate on what he spoke, and what does God say to me? How do I receive that? What is it all saying? Is it true? See, that's what they did. And as they searched and read through the scriptures, they realized they're telling the truth. They're speaking about Jesus. I want to get on over to Paul's invitation to preach in verse 19. Now, verse 18, he had debate with some of the Epicurean and Stoic philosophers. Now, let's stop on that one just for a second, so we'll know who they are. The Epicureans and Stoics were dominant philosophers in the Greek culture. Epicureans believed that seeking happiness or pleasure was the primary goal of life. Oh, have we heard that before? And then by contrast, the Stoics placed thinking above feeling and tried to live in harmony with nature and reason, suppressing their desires for pleasure. Thus, they were very disciplined. We still have those kind of people today. So, verse 22, Paul is prepared to speak. Now, what do we remember about Paul? Paul, as Saul, was very well educated. He was probably the top of his class. He probably was the best debater they had ever seen in their life. He probably, with all of the specialized training that he had, the learning and abilities, he could debate against the best. And so it says in 18, I've got my other Bible up here, so I'm having to look at my spots again differently. He had a debate with some of the Epicurean and the Stoic philosophers. He told them about Jesus and the resurrection, and what's this babbler trying to say? What are these strange things? And so they took him to the council of the city. Come and tell us about this new teaching. Now, see, it just kind of piqued their interest. They liked the new things, the most recent thoughts about anything. They liked that. But in verse 22 says, so Paul, standing before the council, addresses them as follows. Now, this is brilliant. We need to take lessons. We need to go through this today and mark what he's done. So he addresses them as following. Men of Athens, okay, a proper addressing. I notice that you are very religious in every way. So see, he's getting on the same level with them. He is recognizing and letting them know that he knows that you're smart. People really like to know that you might be kind of on my side because I'm smart too. You're smart, I'm smart, so I'll listen to you. For as I was walking along, I saw your many shrines. See, acknowledge that. And one of your altars had this inscription on it, to an unknown God. This God, which you see it shows capitalization, our God, whom you worship without knowing, is the one I'm telling you about. So see, he's established a common ground with them. And in fact, whenever they're talking about, when he says, I notice they're very religious in every way, this is like saying, me too, me too. Whenever you use me too, when you're talking to somebody new, it breaks some walls down, because you're not just sitting here pointing a finger. You're saying, me too, I was there, I understand. Paul says, me too, I'm like you. But let me tell you about the unknown God. He's the God that made everything, the world. You've been pulling up all of these idols and building things, but this is your creation. This isn't what God created. He doesn't live in temples. He's not created with your hands. He created you, basically. In verse 28, for in him we live and move and exist, as some of your poets, the things that you've studied all of this time, they've said this. We are his offspring. And since this is true, we shouldn't think of God as an idol designed by craftsmen from gold or silver or stone. Look how he's just bringing everything that they've kind of touched on a little bit, and he's slowly turning that around to the gospel. And then Paul tells them what they must do because of who God is. God overlooked people's ignorance about these things in earlier times, but now he commands everyone, everywhere, to repent of their sins and turn to him. That's what we need to highlight, that everyone. It doesn't matter if grandma was a devout Christian and she's prayed for you all this time, you still have to repent. For he has set the day of judging the world with justice by the man he has appointed, and he proved to everyone who this is by raising him from the dead. He's talking about Jesus. When they heard Paul speak about the resurrection of the dead, some laughed. Anytime that you start talking about Jesus and changing what people's thoughts and ideas are, you have people laugh, because they say, well, Jesus said you're supposed to love everybody, so I can love everybody in any way I want. Well, that's not the case. See, he's telling them about what Jesus said. They're going to laugh at you, but rest assured, they're supposed to hear it, and you will be planting seeds. Others said, see, always think the others are in the crowd that you're talking to. We want to hear more about this later. Maybe they thought that they needed to just think about all of these things for a little while. Says that ended Paul's discussion with them, but some joined him and became believers. Well, that was a success. Whenever some joins, that means that not all of them walked away. And so if the group that follows you, each one of those reach out and touch 10, just think what that could look like in just a short period of time, because you're not the only one that will be able to reach them. There's going to be somebody else that's going to be able to make that connection because of the relationship they have with a unbeliever. And that will be the person to pull that person in to come sit with you at church on a particular day and learn more and learn more. We want the people to have the desire to know the new way, the way, capital W, and not to just go with a new fad that's passing through the group of people. Among them, it says, were a member of the council, I'm not going to say his name, and a woman named Demarius and others with them. So I don't know who those people were, but they must have been important enough for it to be mentioned. But I wanted just to go back just a little bit on Paul's approach. Look at Paul's approach again on how he didn't just blast them with, you're going to hell, in a handbasket on a swift train. He says, I noticed. Well, you know what? When somebody has a deep faith in something, it's not like, I mean, God has those and suddenly moments that, we could, it can be changed, but it's not us changing them. It's the seeds that's being planted, and let God do that and suddenly moment. So always establish a common ground and then move people toward a decision. But just let them know that you're there to say that prayer with them. You don't know how to do that. Just tell them, well, here, you just say the words after me and we'll pray the sinner's prayer. Paul didn't hold back the truth. We want to be bold whenever we're talking. Paul was bold. There's so much sin going on, and there was then too, because just, we see all the murder and mess with Jezebel and Ahab. There's always been just turmoil, murder, death, destruction in the world since Adam and Eve. So we're not surprised by that. But we get shocked every time that something happens that's outside of what we're believing, because we're thinking, man, we read the Bible. Doesn't these people read the Bible? The 10 Commandments are pretty easy to understand. But Paul didn't hold back on the truth. However, no matter what they might think of it, he still spoke. People left, but people joined in him. He changed his approach at times depending on the audience that he had. I can totally understand that. We're around a lot of different type of believing people. We just talked about the Epicureans and the Stoics. Well, there's those type of people. Just figure out, get some kind of a relationship going first. That doesn't ever hurt to start talking about the weather just to hear what will come out of somebody's mouth and before you move forward. So never hesitate to tell somebody, like we see, there's this mixed reaction on what he said. But the important thing is the ones that received and believed that will be missionaries, will be discipling, will be joining you in heaven. I love the boldness of Paul. I love the encouragement of Barnabas. I love all of this. And you know what? Put yourself in this place. If you were reading this today where it says, so Paul was standing before the council. What if I was reading this right now and I said, so Nancy was standing before the council addressing them, all you women of Athens, I noticed that you're religious in every way. What would that make you think? Oh, wow. So Eileen was standing in front of the council, and here's all of these people of different faiths and beliefs. Wow. It kind of changes, my I read this whenever I look, what if this is me talking to all of these people? And then I start seeing the people leave. I'm going to be a little distracted because I think, oh no, I've offended him. Oh no. Well, yes, anytime you speak the word of God in a crowd of unbelievers, people are going to be offended. But that's the whole point of it. They're going to be offended, but they're going to have that moment that they're going to think, maybe they're right. Maybe the Bible is true. Maybe I need to go get a Bible. Maybe. And that's all we want, is just to have some kind of little interaction that will just make them start thinking. And so this has been an awesome reading this morning. I can't wait to come back. I'll be back at noon for Noon Nuggets, and we're going to jump into Psalms 144. I love that one today. And so you have a blessed day. This is my grandson's birthday, so we're having another birthday party. He's 20 today. I'm so excited. Can't believe how things change. That means we have to really be intentional about who we're visiting with, because time is flying. And go out and spread the word. I love you, and I'll see you at noon. Bye-bye.